You know, one of the most powerful characters in all of Disney media is actually quite a normal Frenchman, and it is the chef from Little Mermaid. I've always wanted to make like a countdown list of this because he's able to throw knives casually, like five at a time, and have them like stick right through, like embed 4 inches into wood cabinets. Um,
Yeah.
and that's pretty impressive, honestly. Honestly, overpowered character, yet Sebastian still defeated him. So how strong is Sebastian the crab? We don't really know.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to be in a dark alley with that guy, though. I'll tell you what. What are you gonna teach me tonight, Ethan?
Tonight, I'm gonna fill
Hopefully
you
not
in
more
on
bullshit.
absolutely
No.
not. Today, I am bringing you a lot more niche knowledge than nonsense. As a matter of
All
fact,
right.
but it's something pretty scary, something that I think a lot of people are kind of distantly aware of, at least in the United States, due to multiple things: urban legends, insurance rates, and other some such, awful necessities, I will say, and that is the 500,000 plus abandoned tunnels spiderwebbed across the entire country of the United States of America. That is right. If you live in the United States, odds are there are tunnels under your feet right now, whether it's from coal, whether it's from a cave structure, or whether it's from just some woman on TikTok, doing some home improvements in her basement. Odds are there are tunnels under your feet. And a lot of them you might not know because, spoiler, they're abandoned and lost. But as we're just going to get right into it, scary tunnels are going to take a lot of different forms. A few areas I want to focus on are abandoned mines, lost sewers, and natural cave formations. So I'm mostly sticking to the natural man-made passages, as I know I've mentioned like goblin tunnels on the podcast in the past, and that could really be its own episode. So I'm
Okay.
not gonna dive too deep into the goblin tunnels, but that'll pop up in a future installment
Okay. Yeah, we can totally do another episode on goblins.
for sure. For sure.
But wait, 500,000?
500,000. There's a lot of different estimates. Again, they can only give good guesses, but most sources, government sources, put it anywhere between 300,000 and 700,000 abandoned mines. And that's just abandoned mines. Again, there are hundreds of thousands that they know about, and there's probably more hundreds of thousands that they do not know about.
Oh my
And yeah,
god.
there's actually whole careers where you survey this, but let's get right into it. So
Do they hire moles? Or
you know, you're not too far off. Foreshadowing.
Okay.
All right. But anyway, according to an article published by the Nevada Independent, Nevada is home to 200,000 documented abandoned mines. Okay. And note that that says documented. There are likely
Just Nevada?
just Nevada. That's not the United States as a whole. It is the leading state for abandoned mines, but they are quite literally everywhere in every single state. It's likely that there are a lot more undocumented mines because some people are going to A, dig without permits. B, it might have happened hundreds of years ago, in the 1800s, and it's just been lost. Some people aren't going to properly report operations either when they open or close. And some people, again, are just plain secretive. So these were some of the these were mineral operations or other coal extraction, gold mines, things like that. Some of them might be utility tunnels, but almost all of it was, extraction process, digging to pull something out of the earth.
Okay.
and if you can keep a goblin from trying to pull that treasure right back into the tunnel, then you have some success. So because
Save
of that,
it.
yeah, because of that commercial success, so there was a time, especially through like the 1800s, when everyone was just digging holes, just looking for stuff. They were looking for caves. They were looking for treasure. I think sometimes just for fun, but even and some of that energy persists today. Again, I think we're all familiar with the TikTok tunnel lady who built the
Yeah.
mine shafts under her house, but we can get into that later too. But Bailey, I have a question for you.
All right. I might have an answer. What is it?
What would you do if you started hearing some mysterious sounds in the middle of the night, and a few days later you found out that a neighbor had tunneled into your basement and just popped out and said, hey, we got a tunnel now?
I don't actually know. I guess. Well, it depends on the neighbor, I guess. Because the one neighbor, our kids play a lot. And we talked about like putting a gate between our fence, like between our houses, so that we could just open it and let the kids play.
Oh,
But if it's the other neighbors, I would probably get the TNT out and just blow us all up. But I don't know. Maybe I'd be like, okay, like why? First of all, I don't know, Ethan. What kind of?
I know,
I'm like caught off guard. I was
and
like,
it's a tough question. It's a tough question, but the reason I ask is because you might come face to face with this situation before you know it. Because if you live in a state like Illinois, it has been mined to death. Again, there is an absolute like interstate structure, like spider web situation, shattered glass pattern of mines dug all over our beloved home state. So any second now,
wow.
somebody who's like living in those mines might burrow up into your basement. I'm putting that at about a 50-50, so I just wanted to put it on your radar. How often do you think about the fact that there are mines under your feet? I have mine subsidence insurance for like $500,000 just because, I hear it happens. Whole people's houses just sink into the ground.
well, okay, now you have me thinking because I have like never seriously considered that. Like I've heard of it in like New York where like the sidewalks kind of cave in and like it just leads down. It's just like a pit that you could fall down into. But I've never thought of that here. But we do actually have a like a cave system here. So I'm in Quincy, Illinois. There is a cave system here and they do mining and stuff. And I have felt my house shake from some of the explosions that they do down there.
They're like actively detonating
Yeah.
stuff under your
Yeah.
home or nearby.
Between that and the 3 sonic booms that I've experienced because they let the military practice at the airport here sometimes, and they do sonic booms. And I literally, like the first time it happened, I called my neighbor and I was like, "Are you okay? Like, was that a gas explosion?" Because when Adam and I lived in Des Moines, there was actually a house that blew up like 6 or 7 blocks away from us, and it shook our house, and I thought it was an earthquake. But I don't know. I guess I don't like spend a lot of time thinking about all of the caves or mines that could be under me, but now I will.
I'm kind of
so
blown
that's
away.
cool.
It sounds like you live in like a cartoon neighborhood. Like, it's like
really
flipping Dimsdale or something. The military is setting off bombs. They're tunneling into your basement with a dynamite and
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Man, I wasn't
Dude, I
expecting
don't
you to
know.
have so much like, subterranean and tectonic activity going on, but it sounds like you're in more of a hotbed for this than I am.
Well, I'm not sure about tectonic activity. I don't know that I'm on a major fault line. Maybe I am. But, I mean, thinking back to in Hillsborough, our hometown, in one of my high school classes, we had to go to so many, like, I forget what you call them, but it's basically like a community
Like the shelters?
gathering. No, so like it was a hearing or something at the local VFW, the veterans place where they play bingo and stuff. They had, so they were trying to get a vote for longwall mining And there were so many people against it. And so I went with a group of other people for extra credit to sit in on it. And then at the end, we got to ask questions and stuff. But there were so many people against longwall mining, and I had never heard of that up until that point. And that's where they basically mine under crops, like under fields of farmers. And they were absolutely against it because that's their livelihood. Like
Sure.
if that mine were to cave in, that would ruin the ground above it, which would take away their crops, you know?
Right. Imagine trying to like haul in an entire cornfield's worth of dirt to fill that back in. That would be like a
Right.
literally
And
impossible.
the topsoil has to be like a certain kind of soil too to grow what you want. Like I don't know, dude.
Yeah, it is nutty, but there's again lots of mine activity out here in
Man.
the Midwest.
Okay, I'll
but-
shut up now. You keep talking.
No, you're good. You're good. That's good connections. But anyway, circling back to that article from the Nevada Independent, in the 1980s, the Nevada government started the Nevada Division of Minerals Abandoned Mine Lands. So they call it the AML program and it was to close off hazardous mines on public lands with no known owner. So again, that was just truly abandoned stuff where they couldn't trace liability to like a specific business and put it in their hands. They had to put together basically a whole task force of searching for mines and putting up signage or otherwise blocking them off. They assessed that as many as 50,000 mines across the state posed significant danger with things like poor bracing structures that would collapse, mine shafts that were essentially just holes dropping literally hundreds of feet straight down, and inspiring unmanageable calls to adventure among their youth, which felt called into the darkness beneath our feet. So
I get that.
no, absolutely. And that's actually a big part of it, though, is not even a joke. Like, it's a big thing out there that teens would go to, they'd hear about an abandoned mine and they'd head off to explore in it.
Okay, but for real though, do you remember that abandoned factory that was right outside of our hometown?
Oh, yeah. Did you ever go?
Out by the sports complex. I did. Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
Or maybe. Cannot confirm nor deny.
Oh, you're right. I
knew somebody who went.
Yeah, I did too. And that person was me.
Oh.
And I also, I don't remember what kind of factory it was, but it was very, I mean, obviously when you're a teen, you just want to do whatever you want.
Sure.
Right? You want to go do stuff to be cool, whatever. But that was a lot of fun because it was like giant concrete buildings that were just falling apart.
Definitely. And parts of it did not feel like safe at all to like,
oh, absolutely not.
but
No.
if you've got like the group mentality or whatever it
Yeah.
is, you roll with it. But
Yeah.
they're not safe, and specifically at least 19 deaths and even more injuries have been attributed to abandoned mines in Nevada since the 1960s. And again, that's just what they know about. So most people who fall into mine shafts don't write into the newspaper about it because they fell 200 feet straight down a hole and probably got got a sprained cankle. And if you get a sprained cankle, then you probably don't have time to write into the newspapers about the fact that you fell down a mine shaft. So again, a lot of these are almost like wells, like literally just holes out of nowhere that they like just threw some boards over 200 years ago, and boards aren't designed to last 200 years. So they become just open pits in the middle of nowhere. Like nature has completely reclaimed the site, so you can't even tell it was anything. It just becomes a literal like death trap. So sadly, this is just one example of abandoned mines. This problem is far from exclusive to Nevada, and according to the Bureau of Land Management here in the United States, probably the second most notable BLM in America. Just side note.
Bacon, lettuce, mayonnaise.
Yes. As many as half a
Sorry, I'm hungry.
You're good. As many as 500,000 abandoned mines are scattered across the country, and maybe more.
My God.
I mean, some estimates are as high as 750,000 of a
Are
million.
you saying billions and billions
Billions
and
and
billions.
billions. Yes. So, how much danger do these mines actually pose? It turns out pretty significant. So, according to BLM, again, the Second Bureau of Land Management,
Okay.
there
Bacon,
were
lettuce, mayonnaise.
bacon, lettuce, mayonnaise. According to the sandwich, there were 381 confirmed deaths due to abandoned mine exploration from
Whoa.
2000 to 2013 alone.
And
381.
Those were only those were the people who were able to write into the newspaper.
Yeah, those were the people who did not sprain their cankle and were identified. Again, yeah, almost 400.
So what do they do? Do they leave them down there like when people die on Mount Everest, or do they send like people down there to get them?
Shoot, if I had to guess, I'd probably guess they wait till the pit gets too full and then they empty it out like a porta potty or something like that.
Oh my God!
Full of soft human remains instead of manure.
No. No. Or oh man, dude.
So
I don't know.
again, also like you said, that's just confirmed. There's probably a lot happening where people just go missing.
Well, yeah.
So I mean,
right.
yeah. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, about 600,000 people go missing every single year in the United States. 600,000, and many of them are found, but literally tens of thousands of them are not. They are never found. Their remains are never discovered, and they just disappear. Again, tens of thousands.
Yeah. Well, okay, there's also an interesting documentary called Missing 411 that kind of touches on people that do go missing in the United States. I don't remember the guy's name, but it's based off of books that this guy wrote. He's like an ex-cop or an ex-private investigator or something for, I don't know, some big guy, you know, he's retired now or something. But he started to look into people who were going missing specifically in state parks. I don't know if you've heard about this before.
I think I've actually got a graphic from what you're talking about.
Okay. So super interesting. I would definitely recommend checking it out if you're unfamiliar with it. But that has me thinking, like, how many cave openings or just giant mine things like could collapse in a state park or, you know, just in the middle of nowhere. And if you're by yourself out there and you fall down a hole, who's going to rescue you? Like, you're not going to have cell service down there.
Definitely,
like
definitely. And that's scary to think
Yeah.
about. You're probably just trapped until you, thirst,
Yeah.
succumb to
Oh my
thirst or the
God.
elements. That's super scary stuff. I'm actually going to touch on that a little bit in the cave section, so stay tuned.
Well, great, because I've seen The Descent, and that movie ruined caves for me, so...
You recommended The Descent to me, actually, and that was actually legitimately scary. I don't know what it was about it, because it was a very minimalist horror movie, but my gosh.
I want to say I was 11 or 12 when I watched that.
Oh, frick
and
no.
It ruined my life for 4 nights. I don't think I slept.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it might run your life again now that you know there are tunnel systems directly under your house. So those little creepy crawlers can get up into your basement. Can you imagine that? We'll touch more on the Descent in the Goblin episode.
All right.
Okay, so I mean, fun fact associated with that, I just have that in my side notes. Alaska has about 4 times the missing persons per capita versus any other state. So needless to say, there must be a lot of abandoned mines in Alaska.
I would... Okay, Ethan, you're just going to throw all of those on abandoned mines?
Let's say 50% will
I'm gonna-
attribute to abandoned mines.
50%.
50. Actually, I do
think-
know just from the forestry department stuff, I know a lot of it happens from getting lost in dehydration followed by animal predation. And they say usually
Yeah.
you'd pass away from thirst and then the hyenas
I'd say
get
there's
to you.
probably a lot of crime there, too.
There's gotta be. I mean, people go to Alaska to disappear and then they disappear. So have you ever heard that song that's like, I think I'll dye my hair and I'll move to Alaska.
Did you just make that up?
No, it's real.
Or
I'll
you
send
know?
it to you later. It's a good song. I don't
Okay.
remember who sings
No,
it.
I haven't heard it. Who
It's
sings
about
it?
dyeing your hair and moving to Alaska to get away from everybody.
Oh,
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
all right.
It could be based on a true story if you got some hair dye,
True.
sitting around.
There you go.
Okay, so anyway, it's obvious there's a problem with all of this, but how exactly are these mines making people disappear? Well, again, BLM was kind enough to put together a list of the
Big
top
mines.
ways that abandoned mine lands, or AMLs, as they call them, can kill you. Seriously. So, this comes from blm.gov, and Bailey, I don't know, maybe you could rank
Is
these
this
on
another authentic.gov website?
No, this is actually just blm.gov. This is not
Okay.
like Gnome Truth.
Okay. Okay.
This is period .gov.
Okay.
I
perfect.
guess maybe you can rate these on a scale from 1 to 10, like on how scary of a way it would be to die, if that's not too dark. But it's
Sure.
BLM's top 6 ways that abandoned mines can kill you, directly from their page. Number 1, you fall to your death down a shaft. This can cause sprained cankle, which often leads to death.
What if you don't have cankles?
Then you probably don't count into that 380 some people who die from mines.
I would say, okay, so am I dying immediately?
Yeah, you're dropping literally 200 plus feet, like death on
Okay, so
impact.
what is the scale?
On how
One, like,
how
the
bad of a
best?
way it is to die. Like
So,
10
like,
being
10,
the
the highest?
worst possible way to die.
Okay, I would rate that a 1 then, because I was going to say out of all the possibilities, if I'm going to immediately die when I hit the bottom, let's do it.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's the best.
I think because it's so deep, that probably gives you. I don't. My physics aren't so great, but probably several seconds, like 5 or 6 seconds of falling, being like, "What the
Yeah,
heck is happening?"
And it's not enough to make you pass out before you hit 2.
Yeah, but needless to say,
Unfortunately.
again, you won't suffer. So that's probably a 2.
Just like,
Speaking of 2, here's the number 2 way that abandoned mines, or AMLs, can kill you. Okay, number 2, you are crushed by a cave-in. Talk about being stuck between a rock and a rock.
Okay, that actually is awful because I am claustrophobic.
Oh no, yeah.
So I would say probably like a 10. I'm just going to go all the way up there because you can't move.
Sure. I know that is really
So-
scary. And I think when that happens, it could be a small space and you might suffocate, pretty peacefully after, a couple of hours. Or if it's connected to like a whole structure and you're just trapped, again, it could be days in a tiny confined area. Ugh. Scary. It's like being buried alive. So,
Literally.
Num-
And that's a fear of mine.
yeah.
Ugh.
If you want, when you pass away, I can just like, I don't know, get like a little injection of death juice or something, whatever that is, cyanide.
Okay.
I'll inject you in the elbow just in case to make sure you're good and dead. 0 chance of you being
I
buried
actually
alive.
keep a little pill that you can bite
You have the
in
FBI
my pocket
cyanide
at all
too.
times.
Oh man, did you see Dune where they had the
Okay,
death
the
tooth where you
original.
break it and go?
That's how. Yep, I caught that reference. I've seen the original. I have yet to watch the new ones. I wanted to watch the first one. like
Good
the
on you, good on you.
80s.
They are a bit of a slog,
David
but it was still a
Lynch.
neat movie. The old ones.
Okay, I
Old
did
one.
like it. The old one, yes. And Adam didn't like the whispering, but I thought that was a clever way of differentiating like his internal thoughts versus actual speaking.
Definitely. And I mean, that
I did
was,
like it. Yeah.
all of the auditory stuff was definitely more tactful in the newer ones. But also,
Yeah.
David Lynch, who I believe directed the old
Yes,
Dune,
he
like
did.
requested that his name not be put on the movie because he was so ashamed of it. That's how the urban legend
Wow.
goes. So, rough stuff. So, that brings us to number 3. The number 3 top way to die in an abandoned mine. You are killed by explosives left behind. I'm guessing this is like TNT because I don't think like the explosives are coming at you with a knife. Like, I think,
Yeah.
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 Again, instant death, so probably like a 1 for me.
I would say, well, you're not going to see it coming. So you're
That's
just
true.
like down there hanging out, and you step on a booby trap, and you're just
You become
boob.
Sherwin Williams paint on the wall.
There you go. I would say a 5.
5?
Say a 5. Yeah.
Oh man. So
For the statistically speaking, less than 50% of millennials have a living will. So if
Ooh.
you do plan on exploring an abandoned cave or a mine, maybe you should do that before.
yeah, I feel like
in case.
I'm going over lyrics for like a Dumb Ways to Die song. Like, so for the 50% of people who don't have a will, if you could write in nicheknowledgenonsense@gmail.com, put us in your will if you
In the
plan
will.
on exploring mines.
Yes.
If you're going to get blown up, we want
you.
at least some of the credit, but no of the legal liability.
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird.
And then doing that will help our podcast blow up.
No joke. All of you be safe, be healthy. Do not
Canceled.
explore abandoned mines. Okay.
please don't.
I'll power through these last 3 here. Number 4, you breathe in deadly gases or run out of oxygen. Yeah, these aren't just like kinks for the bedroom. They can actually pose serious dangers if done improperly.
By a gas kink in the bedroom, are you saying like
I don't know.
a Dutch oven?
Oh my gosh. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to
Okay,
Google it.
so I would say, because you're going to pass out before you die.
Oh, that's like
but still,
doing whippets or
that'd be
something.
like-
I'm going to give that a -1. It sounds nice. Not that I've ever done whippets. I
I'd
don't
say a
even know what that
3.
is.
What is a whippet?
Exactly,
Good.
exactly. Google it later. Number 5, you can't find your way out.
That's terrible.
Yeah, just
That's a
getting
10.
lost. Yeah.
That's an 11.
11? It's
Yeah,
worse than being trapped is just being trapped and wandering.
Yeah, because then you're panicking and you're in this confined space, and you don't want to use your breadcrumbs on the ground to keep track of where you are because you need something to eat.
Sure.
You don't know how long you're going to be down there.
And you're, you probably only have so much light. Even if you have a good flashlight, it's
Yeah.
only going to last a few hours.
No.
All right. And you're still Googling whippets, and I'm moving on to...
It's a dog?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It's a dog.
It's not
All right,
a
I'm gonna have
dog.
to look. Is a slang term for recreationally used nitrous oxide. Huh.
Okay.
So like with helium? Just kidding.
Oh, man.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
helium's good. The last way on their top 6 list is, while above ground, you plunge over an unexpected cliff or high wall. You are buried alive under a collapsing high wall. You fall into or drown in an open pit.
Oh,
So you fall
okay,
off
that's-
infrastructure into something. That
And then
seems
you
like a
drown.
throwaway. I don't know. That seems like a not so cool way. That's too complicated. I give it a 5. I just want to be done with it.
If I'm drowning, that's going to be also an 11.
Man, you have a lot of 11s on this. I'm starting to think that you
I
just
do.
have a
I have a
zest
cat
for
named
life.
11.
You do. Shout out to 11. So
She
anyway,
just left.
it goes on to
So
list.
she wasn't, yeah.
Yeah, lists some of the other peripheral dangers, including exposure to radioactive gas and toxic chemicals, confrontations with wildlife dwelling in mines, and injury from collapsing surface structures and equipment. So any abandoned water in mines, it also notes, is most likely toxic and should not be consumed. So also just imagine going into a mine and running into a bear, like
Oh my God.
a freaking like fallout radioactive bear or something. That's probably in Alaska.
thank
Alaskan
you.
mines, there got to be a lot of bears in those, so that explains why they
Yeah?
have 4 times as many mine related disappearances.
Well,
That
they keep
stats
giving those polar bears
original.
Coke up there.
The
Yeah.
BLM actually made a very fun documentary about mine danger. It's very outdated and very overacted to the point of basically being like comedy, but it's also a lot of fun. I'm going to link
Okay.
that in the show notes. It like starts out with like this 1980s like Jeep rolling up into the mountains and just has a bunch of like overdubs of people saying, "I thought it'd be safe. All of my friends were doing it. I'd never been in
Oh
an
my
abandoned
God.
mine before." And it's just this weird abandoned mine propaganda video that's very interesting.
Huh.
But anyway, that's enough about mines for now. There's obviously a lot, and I wish I could speak for a few minutes about each of the 500,000 individual mines, but that will be for another episode. The
Wow.
the next tunnel that I want to get into is the cave, and by get into I mean talk about because I do not want to be in a cave. Anyway,
Same.
Bailey, have you ever been in a cave or like a mine? Have you ever been in like a cave or a mine?
Yeah.
Anything like that?
Yep. So I've not been in a mine, but I've been to Merrimack Caverns.
Oh, that's a great cave.
So I've been down there. There's Mark Twain caves, like 30 minutes away from me, but I just haven't gone yet. Also, yeah, so I have been. It's very damp, dark, creepy, and I like get claustrophobic easily,
Sure.
so I can't do it for more than like 15, 20 minutes.
Even in like
Yeah.
the bigger caves like Merrimack Caverns.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because I was like with a big group of people, but I just kept thinking like, oh my God, what if there's an earthquake?
Oh,
And
I think that
it just, or what if like, a rock falls and then there's just like a freaking avalanche or whatever. I don't know. Not an avalanche
no,
in a
no,
cave,
I
but
get
you know what
ya.
I'm talking about? Like one thing hit, falls and then it all comes collapsing in on you. What do you do?
Exactly.
Die.
Nothing. Exactly. That's why it's on the BLM list for mines. Same thing applies to caves. No, I've been probably in like 10-ish caves, and every single time I think, what if there's an earthquake while I'm in here? Like the cave hasn't
Yeah.
been there for, 200 million years and survived thousands of earthquakes. I still think, well, this will be the time that it drops.
Hey, I do want to point out though that cave backwards is evac, and I don't think that is a coincidence. Because if you are in a cave, you should evacuate.
Dang. Niche knowledge and nonsense. New episodes every 2 weeks. Dispensing wisdom. I love it. I love it. So, the United States is home to some of the best caves in the world. That
Brave. I'm gonna let you talk. Okay.
I don't know. Which also just seems kind of weird to claim like we got some of the best caves. That's like saying we have some of the best serial killers or something, in this case.
Yeah.
Like there's
Which I don't think so because, I mean, shoot, what are those?
I mean, I feel like
Where
we're
all the-
we're
where all
claiming
the bones are.
oh, like the catacombs?
Yeah.
Oh.
I would say those are better.
Those are pretty cool too, yeah. But
Yeah.
there's it's too crowded for my taste. I hear there's like thousands of people in there.
Yeah, but at least it's decorated cool.
Oh heavens.
You're laughing at your own joke? Who does
I was
that?
only smiling. I
heard you.
So, anyway, there are actually 45,000 known caves in the United States alone. 45,000. And they're actually discovering more every single year, like all the time.
Wow.
And some of the top states are actually like our Midwest gems. Tennessee has the most states at just over, or the most states. Actually, Tennessee has the most caves out of any state at just over 9,000, which is
Oh my God.
pretty freaking cool. Yeah, exactly. But not only do we have a lot of caves, but we have some of the best. According to the National Park Foundation, that's nationalparks.org, Mammoth Cave in Kentucky is the largest known cave structure in the world, with over 400 miles of passages explored so far, and that is still expanding. It could be even
Whoa.
bigger than that. like any number from like, 401 miles to infinity miles. Like that's the range we've
Wow.
established so far. But that sounds all well and good if you're a bat or perhaps a psychopath or a bear, but caves also pose many significant dangers. Bailey, would you like to guess how many people die each year in the U.S. due to cave-related accidents? This is going to shock you, especially just given the mine number of 381 or so.
I'm gonna guess 250,000.
250,000 people die every year in caves. Maybe so,
Or
actually,
180.
as we might find. But the answer might shock you. About 10. In a good year, it's about 3 or 4, and on a bad year, it's about 10 or 11 or so. But most of these are actually attributed to cave
Those
diving.
are rookie numbers. We
They
need to get
are.
that. Like those should be way higher.
Again,
Come on, guys.
caves that we know about. And that doesn't include
Okay.
people like having, like a heart attack or dying of natural causes while exploring a cave, but just cave related incidents. Again, almost all of them are underwater caves and having an accident where you run out of oxygen or
Oh.
get trapped. So, again, statistics can
Yikes.
only get you so far, and I'm going to show you an image that you might have already seen that's pretty interesting, and you can let me know what you think. But this is a comparison of two maps. The top map is going to
Okay.
show a plot of mysterious disappearances, and the bottom map shows America's largest cave systems. Yeah, if you look at these two maps, they're quite nearly identical. Now, this pops up on social media every couple of years, and I wanted to look into it a bit because, not everything you read on
Yeah.
Facebook is real. And fortunately, there was a Snopes article on this, and I was expecting it to
Okay.
be total BS, but it was marked as mixed truth. So, they do point out that using mysterious disappearances is always going to lend itself a bias toward national parks because that's one of the number one places that people disappear, as you mentioned. So obviously it lends itself toward a cave bias, as many national parks include caves. And people can go missing and, and any kind of way when they're out in the national
No,
parks,
yeah,
dehydration
that
or
is-
anything else. But it's still eyebrow raising when you look at mysterious disappearances and caves. It's like the
Yeah.
same graph.
It is, and on the bottom of it, which we'll share this on our Instagram page if you want to check it out. It's at NKNPod. But if you look at the bottom of the graphic, on like the bottom half of the map, it's in blue. It says limestone caves.
Yeah, that's right in your neighborhood,
And-
huh?
Yeah, we have a bunch of limestone where we live, right along the Mississippi.
Your house is a dot on this map. How does that make you feel?
Actually, it is. I see it.
That is really funny. That's really funny. Bailey, you recently visited a national park, didn't you?
Yes. So we drove through the Rocky Mountains when we went to Estes Park in Colorado, which that is like a national park, like that whole area.
Awesome. Did you encounter any missing persons when you were there?
I mean, I guess I could have, but I didn't know at the time.
Well, next time, if you do, make sure you report it, though, because they're looking for about 90,000 people right now. So,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Not just in the Rocky Mountains. That's across the whole
okay,
country.
Just like all across.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
No, that's still quite high.
Definitely. So if anyone listening to
Yeah.
this podcast comes across a missing person, make sure you report their location so that we can bring that number down. I would like to see that at about 89,000 before this year is up. So a couple
Yeah.
more things on caves real quick. Tennessee, again, actually has the most caves with over 9,000 caves, and some states that have the least are Delaware with only 3 caves, but it's a pretty small state. What's more
Yeah.
wild is a big state like Louisiana only has 7 confirmed caves that they've found so far. Nebraska only has 5 caves, and North Dakota only has 4. So they're like smooth, caveless communities, or at least they haven't found the caves
Okay.
yet. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know Illinois has a ton.
I think either hundreds or thousands. It's up there on like the
Yeah.
cave belt.
For real.
And Missouri, I know, has a few thousand. I've been to a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of them. Some of them suck, honestly. There are some really cool ones, but there's also some that you're like, okay, this is like a divot in a mountain. I don't even know if this is a cave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another concern with caves, especially in the US and Europe again, is that they provide ample dark and damp environments that can grow dangerous things such as molds and goblins, and it's been part of a silently growing problem. So it's hard to ignore the
Okay.
missing persons cases that also line up perfectly with the goblin habitat. And I think most people listening to this podcast have had at least a few goblin incidents, and this isn't something that like the national parks entities have addressed directly or formally in recent statements. And I won't dive too deep into it because it could again really be its own episode, and it might be my next episode. But
Okay.
you know, we'll follow up soon. Okay, let's go to the last tunnel topic that I want to cover today, and that
Sure.
is the sewer systems. Now, sewer systems, caves are not
What a shitty
technically,
topic.
right? They're not technically abandoned, just yet to be discovered. There are thousands of miles of abandoned sewers in the United States, and
Wow.
not just in the US. Like, I think London is the scary sewer capital of the world. That's not a diss
Ugh.
on you, London. I love London. I just mean you have a lot of sewers under the city. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's like outside the United States, but over here we've always had kind of like a little bit of a almost romantic view of the sewers just from media, things like Ninja Turtles, that paint them as these like big open cheery tunnels where,
Yeah.
it's fun to hang out and you can order a pizza. Most of them are completely dark and 200 years old. Well, not most of them, but a lot of them are, and thousands
Yeah.
of miles in a lot of different cities are basically completely abandoned, and they're either still working as storm drains or again they're just lost tunnels under your city. So I think the
Wow.
idea of tunnel structures being deliberately built under our cities is kind of neat. But what's more wild is that, at least in the case of like old fashioned brick tunnel sewers, you can kind of just go into them. Like some of them are locked
Oh.
off, but a lot of them aren't. Like if you can move a manhole cover or find like an access grate, you can kind of just get into some sewers. Like it's kind of wild, right? It's super
Oh my
dangerous, of
God.
course. Like you shouldn't if you
Yeah.
don't know what you're doing. But we kind of already covered this, but have you done very much like urban exploration? I know you went to like the, abandoned factory, but I mean, we've done some like closed hotels and stuff on like our haunted explorations, but have you ever just like gotten into an abandoned building and looked around?
No, I mean the closest thing I ever got was like the building that the firefighters would set on fire to practice. Like it's made of like steel or something.
I know,
And it was
yeah, I know what
outside
you're
of our
talking about.
hometown. Yeah, I went there once or twice with friends like late at night, but not really anything.
So, did you
Yeah.
ever go to, there was an abandoned, they said it was haunted house outside of like between Hillsborough and Litchfield. Did you go to that
Yes.
one?
I did, and I have pictures from that. If I were to dig, I'm sure I could come up with it.
Oh, heck
Yeah.
yeah. So, I think that
Yeah.
was kind of
They
like,
tore it down though.
I feel like
Yeah.
everybody in like a 40-mile radius had the exact same like set of life experiences. But
Yeah.
urban exploration is definitely something that I've wanted to do, but I just don't know if I have the guts. I have heard anecdotally that you can either wear a black hoodie or if you wear like a bright reflective vest and a hard hat or carry a badge, like you can just go wherever you want and people assume you're supposed to be there. So look like you can stand out, but look like you're supposed to be there, and it works okay.
Yeah.
So sewers
We should try
exist in a few capacities and also tend to scale with the size of the cities that they serve. It's been said that there are roughly 10,000 miles of sewers under New York City, ranging from small
Whoa.
tunnels to absolutely cavernous industrial areas that you could drive a bulldozer through. I looked up some photos and it's actually kind of shocking. There's like multiple levels, huge reservoirs, there's like trucks and lights, and it's almost like a cathedral underground in some spots.
Whoa.
And then of course a bunch of just really scary abandoned tunnels. And while these can be a little eerie themselves, what's scarier is that many cities don't have maps of their sewers. Some do, some keep good records, some keep old records, some do not. A lot of places have massive networks of tunnels that they don't even know where they go, with things like
Oh my gosh.
crumbling brickways, deep reservoirs of rancid water, concrete rooms just underground for like off the tunnels for almost no apparent reason, access hatches and manhole covers that lead up into buildings. Like, it's
Oh my god.
truly wild. And almost
Wait.
every old city has these.
Okay, wasn't there one under, I won't say a name.
One of our
but
movie
under
theaters
one
that
of
we
the
worked
theaters?
at. Yep. I won't say
That's
the
what I
name
thought.
either, but very, very scary.
Also though, didn't you mention like having found a job posting for something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. When I
you had looked into it.
when
Do you-
when
yeah,
I
tell-
had
tell me
just graduated college, I was looking for a job, as people do, and one of them that caught my eye was for the city of St. Louis, the sewer district. They have a bunch of lost sewers, and they were hiring a full-time person at like 45 or 50,000 a year. So not like a ton, but decent money.
Yeah.
To hop down into the sewers wearing like this giant GPS backpack and like having like a shoulder mounted camera, like the flipping Google Street View van, and to walk the abandoned sewer tunnels to help them remap everything in the city. I thought that was a really cool sounding job, but it also sounds so scary. Like they're just putting you in
Yeah.
the abandoned sewers and saying, walk around. Here's 50,000.
What? Surely the city of St. Louis has enough money that they could send like a drone or something down there.
I don't know. I don't
Because
know.
I mean, not that I am for technology replacing jobs for people,
But that
just
job,
because of the
yeah.
level of safety.
Oh, for sure.
That you know.
I mean, it starts
Yeah,
drizzling.
that's
You have to
wild.
get out because it could, fill with 100 square miles
Water.
of water just rushing in at the same time. So yeah, that.
Or like rats or any type of wildlife living down there.
Oh, we're gonna get into that. Trust me.
Oh, okay.
But anyway,
Okay.
so the fact are that there are lost tunnels under most big cities, and not just mines and not just caves, that you can just hop down into, and it's kind of insane. But again, there are a lot of associated risks: drowning, electrocution, because a lot of the time they bury, they run like electrical infrastructure in the sewers, and other
Yeah.
dangers lie around literally every corner. On top of the fact that you could just get lost, again, up to 10,000 miles under New York. That's wild. So I wanted to talk about a
Wow.
few of those dangers too. Now, the first and foremost, let's get it out of the way: sewer alligators. Right? Bailey, do you
Is that a real thing?
have you've heard of like the
Shut
sewer
up.
alligator legends, right?
I've heard of snakes coming up in your toilets, but I've never heard of sewer alligators.
No, really, there was a movie about it in the 80s or 90s. I think it was a bad movie, but it's a popular urban legend that comes in many flavors, and it usually centers around New York. The story goes that some rich urbanite has a pet alligator, it gets too big, and eventually they release it into the sewers. Now, alligators tend to be warm weather animals, and New York City isn't exactly known for being, balmy and hot. But
Right.
they will say, well, don't you see the steam coming out of those sewer grates? It's hot and humid down there with plenty of rats to eat. So, in theory, maybe an alligator could survive. But while it's fun to think about, a quick Google search turns up a bunch of results that say it's basically completely BS.
Yeah, I don't even see it like being likely. Like when you do see the steam or whatever coming out, it's because it's winter and
Yeah.
you know.
For
Yeah.
sure. And while alligators might not exist in New York, according to some people, they do, however, exist in Florida. A New York Post article documented video footage of an alligator in a storm sewer tunnel that is pretty scary. And
What?
I you don't have to watch the video, but I just dropped it in our Discord and I will link it in the show notes. But basically,
That is
it's just like some
terrifying.
remote footage of an alligator walking through a sewer, just like in, a flippin' scary movie or something out of an urban legend. And it's not a
What?
very big alligator. You can tell by its proportions. I think it's kind of you know,
Also,
maybe a few feet long.
how sad for that little guy to just be lost down in there.
Yeah, I know that is really sad. I mean, that also says it's a storm grate tunnel, so hopefully it's just a straight line, but
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, that being said, sewer alligators in New York might, maybe, not be real, but that doesn't stop them from constantly finding alligators in the sewers. It just so happens.
Oh
And
my
I'm not kidding
gosh.
either. When you Google it, again, it says it's completely false and then presents you with a wall of collections of instances where they did happen to find alligators in the sewers of New York City, going all the way back to the 1800s. Now, back then, they attributed it to maybe alligators falling off of cargo ships coming in from other coasts, but it was kind of funky that they would pop up in, the rivers and in the sewers. A notable case includes a story from the winter of 1935 when a group of teenagers discovered an 8-foot alligator in a sewer in Harlem, New York, where they were shoveling snow into a sewer grate because it would, just make it go away, disappear, or whatever. And they noticed, hey, there's something down there. They peeked over and saw that it was an 8-foot lizard moving around sluggishly in the ice. Now, the kids were pretty surprised, so they did the normal kid thing and proceeded to attack the alligator with snow shovels. It's
Aw.
actually extremely sad, but experts have said, the alligator was already basically frozen and not doing well, and they were
Aw.
scared. But still, not a happy end.
Uh,
Anyway,
I'd like to just talk to those kids.
yeah, with a
Um,
snow shovel.
because I am the alligator
I'm gonna put a very small.
reincarnated, and I'm hungry.
You gotta pay for what you did to that alligator in Harlem.
Oh
Okay.
my god.
Yeah. So in fact, a New York Times article on alligators in New York mentions that the city rescues several alligators from sewers and city ponds in a similar fashion every single year, most of them believed to be abandoned pets. I will put the link to that article in the show notes, but it's really weird that when you look it up, it says, no, this is not true. It just happens a few times every year. So it's pretty
That's
wild.
insane.
I'm gonna put it
That's
as
how
a
I,
mix. They have never though. They've never found like a big, 15-foot long man-eating alligator in the sewers of New York.
yeah. I would say, quit dumping your pets, people. If you're doing
Absolutely
that,
not.
you're a
And
terrible person. That's how I
that
ended
goes
up with
from a
my
dog
rabbit.
or people do that with ducks too. They get them and.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, that's
you've
how.
you've actually took one in, right?
Yeah, and um, neighbor. Well, her and I kind of got into it, which I won't really get into. But she claims that she didn't dump it. Um, the bunny was obviously a domestic bunny. It is all white with like brown spots on it, and I had like seen it around the neighborhood, and I was like, obviously that's someone's pet. And I know that the animal control and the shelters here don't have the like means to take care of bunnies, because where I am, I learned this after bringing her in. Bunnies are considered exotic pets.
What?
So I have to drive about 40-ish minutes to a vet that will see her, because there aren't any or like local, like super close. Yeah, I don't know if that's just my area,
Didn't
I
you
don't
run
know.
into a similar vet situation with your guinea pigs, though?
Well, that's another thing because our family vet was like, "Oh, well, a guinea pig's basically like a rabbit, so yeah, I'll help you." And then he ended up giving us uh, a some type of medicine that had bacteria or something in it that would eat the bad bacteria because she had an infection in her stomach. But because she's a guinea pig, it also ate the good bacteria in her stomach. So it ate all of the bacteria in her stomach and she was unable to digest any food. And then she died a very upsetting and sad death.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
So thanks for bringing that up, Ethan. I'm joking.
Womp, womp,
R.I.P. Piggy.
womp. So, again, thanks for tuning into the last episode of Niche Knowledge and Nonsense. So, okay.
No, yeah, because I had leashes for my guinea pigs and then I gave them to your sisters.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is also really nice to like walk a guinea pig. People like that when they see you walking
Yeah.
something and it's a guinea pig. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And then they're just dragging it and you're like, oh my God, is it alive? And you're like, no, my vet killed it.
it's too dark, too dark. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, that alligators are they're not the only risk in sewers.
Okay.
Have you ever
also-
heard
Are you okay?
I'm getting there, I'm getting there.
I really
Daily-
got you on that one.
Yes. Oh, I feel bad. I'm sorry.
No, don't feel bad. I'm over it, dude.
We're so over it. Such a last year problem. Okay. Anyway, have you ever heard of a fatberg?
What did you just call me? A fat berg. No, I've never heard of that.
Okay, so another sewer risk is the fatberg. So fatbergs happen when non-degradable things like baby wipes, tampons, and stuff like that get flushed down the sewers and then
Okay.
proceed to cling together. These materials combine with fat and grease, which are not water soluble, which is why you aren't supposed to pour them
Ooh.
down the drains. And they begin lumping together with feces to become these massive putrid iceberg like clogs in the sewers. And I don't know if they're necessarily dangerous per se, but it's pretty gross. So in
Ew.
2017, London sewer workers had to confront the largest fatberg ever discovered. It was a 250-meter long, 130-ton mass of flushable wipes, grease, and manure, all clung together, completely stopping up a sewer. So they even gave it a name, affectionately calling it Fatty McFatberg.
Iconic.
Pretty
I love
iconic,
it.
right?
Slay.
And they have no choice but to just like break it up and shovel it out. So again, PSA, most plumbers say there's not really such a thing as a flushable wipe. That's a marketing term.
Yeah,
They do not
just don't
dissolve
do
in the
it.
water. Just don't do it. Throw it in a waste bin or just buy a bidet. Like get into
Yeah.
2024.
I
So
have yeah.
go on.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't have a bidet for my toilet, but I do have a face bidet, in my bathroom.
Wait, what? What?
A face bidet.
Is this a pun?
No, just like a sink, you know.
Oh my gosh. I got the big dumb. I thought there was a thing I didn't know about. Those are gross, but there's one more scary thing about sewer tunnels, and that's
Okay.
the people living inside them. Kidding, kind of. There are actually
Okay.
populations of people living inside of sewers in the United States and outside of the United States. I hear it's like a whole culture in London, but it tends to be unhoused populations seeking shelter from extreme weather. And these groups are referred to, and I am not making this up, from Wikipedia, mole people.
That's fitting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it does make sense. I feel like I always
Yeah.
heard the expression mole people as like a conspiracy, but it in this case refers to people who live in underground infrastructure, tunnels, sewers, and things like that. So
Okay.
this Wikipedia entry goes on to detail that as many as 1,000 people live in the drains under Las Vegas, where they go so
Oh,
far as to collect discarded items and build rooms in the sewers. There are some photos out there, and some of these people have like whole beds set up and everything, like stacked up on bricks and standing water. And I think that sounds like very scary and not safe and also very sad. But in some ways,
yeah.
it's also kind of neat how like these small communities and microcosms can pop up anywhere, like literally even inside of sewers. It's kind of wild. So again, this isn't
Yeah.
isolated in the US, and it might even be more popular in some like European cities, where there are tons of ancient sewers and lots of people
Oh,
competing
yeah.
for expensive housing.
Yep.
And it may not sound great, but there are worse places to live in Europe, like France.
Just friends.
Yeah.
I do want to say like there is a big homeless issue in the US and not a lot of support for that. I know even the local one or my local one struggles to they struggle with having to turn people away, and they have limits on how long people can stay there. So even if you're there for 2 or 3 days, then you have to leave and let someone else have a turn, and then
Sure.
you just swap. And if there's not a good support system in an area, they either have to like kind of help each other out, although you can't trust everyone. It
Mm-hmm.
can kind of be like dog eat dog type life for that. But I will say the sewer seems like one of the safest places. Like if you're actually homeless and you are like looking in the sewers and
Sure.
you find somewhere, like it's like if you were to find an abandoned motel, like the cops are probably going to be checking that out
Right.
every so often if it's on their patrol. But the sewers, like who goes down there?
Yeah, it's
You know what I
also
mean?
worth noting some of these sewers literally have like entire rooms off of the tunnels where they like store equipment and things like that. And often they've got lights and, maybe
Oh
even like
wow.
a couple of outlets. Not all of them, but some.
Yeah.
So if you can get down there and kind of stay quiet, maybe it's not so bad. But yeah, it is
Yeah.
an issue. I mean, in St. Louis, early pandemic, we started getting like tent cities building up in the parks in St.
Yes.
Louis, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, "I'm scared. We got to get rid of these." And it's like, well, there's like 100 people here to go where? Like
Yeah,
the
what else are
housing
they supposed to do?
shelters are literally completely full. Do you want
Yeah.
to move them from this park into somebody else's park? Like, what do I don't, it's not
Right.
a good solution. So it's again,
Exactly.
that's kind of sad commentary on it. But that being said, there are also some mole people who have just it's their way of life. That's what they give it a shot. They're like, being homeless is not easy for sure, but they
Mhm.
figure out ways to make it work. And there's some people who have been living in the sewers for apparently decades. Like that's just
Wow.
what they do. Anyway, that's about it for abandoned tunnels across America. Again, between the tens of thousands of miles of sewer that have been abandoned, the caves that interconnect and spider across everywhere, and the 500,000 plus abandoned mines, it's safe to say that we are the top layer of a very thick cake. And there's so much under our feet. Not even getting into the goblins, really.
Well,
So
no. And if you own your house, you just own the top of the soil. You don't own the like what's under that. So, actually, I was going to ask you this earlier and then I totally spaced. So, if my house does cave in, who do I sue if I don't die?
it I've actually
Would
looked
it
at
would it be the city?
so a lot of the time I've only kind of looked into this because our next door neighbors had mine subsidence issues and they had to have their entire house rebuilt. And they built it on the same
Wow.
plot, and they claimed that they were able to get in and shore stuff up underneath it. But I don't
Okay.
buy that. Who's got the proof? I don't think they're going into an
Yeah.
old mine and bracing stuff. That was
Right.
50 feet away from me. So because of that, I got literally the maximum mine insurance that I could put on our home. It's not really that expensive, but they also require you to carry at least some level of it out here because it happens so often. And usually the
Wow.
companies fold or they can't find, like ownership of them, and there's nobody for you to really sue. It almost becomes like an act of God kind of thing, which
Oh,
is
wow.
which is why you got to put it on your insurance policy. You might luck out
Interesting.
and find like an operating mine that went under your city, and maybe you could, sue
Well, I'm going to
somebody.
write down mine subsidence insurance.
It's most
Seems
likely if you check your policy, you probably have some coverage already.
well, maybe, but like flood insurance is not always it's hardly ever included in any
Sure.
regular home insurance coverage.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so that you would like have to get a separate one for that.
Yeah, so
So
other
interesting.
other
So now I
recommendation
will
for
be
the
doing
episode:
that.
get some mine subsidence insurance. If you
Yeah.
haven't yet, get some. Or if your landlord hasn't, have them get some.
Yeah.
All right,
Maybe.
but that's all I got for the abandoned tunnels.
Yeah, no, what an episode. I am now even more scared than I was before. If I were a dog, I would be a little shaking chihuahua now. So, thank you,
Absolutely,
Ethan.
absolutely. And again, a reminder: don't go into the abandoned mines. There,
Okay, but that makes me want to then.
I hear you. I
So,
hear you. I hear you. They have signage they put outside saying "Do not go into the abandoned mines" or "unsafe." But that's only the ones they know about. We have such a small percentage of them surveyed. So if you do find an abandoned mine when you're out and about, you can call your local police at the non-emergency line, and they will get a hold of people with the Bureau of Land Management, and or a lot sometimes it goes with like the county like road commissioner or whatever that office is. But again, if you just call the non-emergency police line, that is the best way to report abandoned mines if you're out and about and you happen to fall into a 200-foot shaft and get a sprained cankle. But I hope that doesn't happen to anyone listening to this podcast. If you're
Yeah, I
not
hope
listening
so.
to this podcast, then well, my hopes don't rest in the same place. All right. We got anything else?
Yeah. No, I think that was it.
All right, terrific.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for tuning in. We will be coming back at you again in 2 weeks with another another episode of Niche Knowledge and Nonsense. And then a couple weeks after that, if all goes well, then we can just have a cave tie-in and finally get to the often mentioned, yet to be covered, Top Goblins episode.
Oh gosh. Is that the next one you're going to do?
Yes, I've actually
For sure?
already written
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
I originally
Okay.
had top 10 goblins, but I might have to extend it to top 15 real goblin encounters. There's just too
Okay.
much information on the topic.
Okay. Well, it's your episode, Ethan.
All right, terrific, terrific. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, or night.
Yeah, there you go. Way to like knock off the Truman Show quote. Yeah, and make sure to check out our social media if you want. We're on Instagram at NKNPod. You can also find us at Niche Knowledge and Nonsense
At
at
gmail.com.
gmail.com.
Yeah, drop us a line. Let us know if you find an abandoned mine. We'd love to see some pictures. If you're doing some urban exploration, if you've got an alligator you're thinking about releasing, just send me your address and
We have yet to receive a cease and desist, and we'll continue until we receive that.
yeah, we will keep going. We will
That's
keep
where
going.
you could send it if you want to send it.
Absolutely.
So,
I'll cease and
have a
desist.
great day.
Niche knowledge and nonsense at gmail.com. Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.